This is meteorologist Tim Root with your KLEK 102.5 forecast. It'll be partly sunny with spotty showers and thunderstorms today and partly to mostly cloudy with showers and thunderstorms tonight. The high near 90, the low near 75. Showers and thunderstorms likely Friday, partly to mostly cloudy. Temperatures will be in the mid to upper 80s. And a few more showers and thunderstorms planned for the upcoming weekend. Highs in the 80s, close to 90. Jonesboro, that's your KLEK 102.5 FM weather.
From Feature Story News in Paris, I'm Elena Casas. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to meet French President Emmanuel Macron for talks on Brexit in Paris, after Macron said renegotiating the withdrawal agreement was not an option. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has praised Denmark as a US ally after President Trump cancelled a visit after he was told Greenland isn't for sale, and the Italian President Sergio Mattarella is to attempt to form a new government on Thursday.
It's 9:01.
Community Conversations is brought to you by Arkansas Early Learning, offering no-cost childcare in Jonesboro and Northeast Arkansas. Applications at arearlylearning.org.
Arkansas Early Learning is a nonprofit organization.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday to you. I hope that you're having a great start to your day. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. My special guest is not in the studio today. She's on the phone. So say good morning to Miss Coffy Davis. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, and so she is the author of a book called Medusa, and she has also published other books. We'll get into that a little bit later, but first, I would like for her, Miss Coffy, to please give a introduction of herself, since this is your first time on the air.
Oh, okay, good morning. My name is Coffy Davis. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas. I moved here in 1999 from Oakland, California. I have an English degree from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, and I created a program in 2004 called the Underground Railroad Neighborhood Project. That's an initiative that bridged art and literacy with at-risk communities. I'm also a poet, that's my first love, and an author and a playwright.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we need to have a deeper conversation. Like, you've been holding out on me. I met Miss Coffy by way of a virtual women's writing group, and I must say it has been very impactful to me. I'm so blessed to have met you and the other ladies that are in the group. So,
thank you.
We have a little bit of a history, even though we haven't met in person just yet. But I'm excited to get right into this book. Okay, so the title of your book is called Medusa, and
yes.
I noticed that with the spelling or the capitalization of the title, the M-E is capitalized. So, kind of give us a rundown of the meaning behind that.
Okay, well, the meaning behind the title, everyone is familiar with the Greek mythology version of Medusa.
Mm-hmm.
So, Medusa also has ties to Africa. Many people believe that Medusa's origins lie in North Africa, where she represented one of the triple moon goddesses. So I'll just talk about the Greek version, where Medusa was a gorgon. She was a winged human female with snakes in her hair, and you gaze upon her face and you turn to stone.
Okay.
Well, the story behind her is that she was raped by Poseidon, and she was that was in Athena's castle, and Athena banished her. She was a very beautiful woman, but Athena banished her and turned her into this monster and exiled her. So, and of course, in the end, Perseus comes and he kills her. So I like that as a metaphor for women, particularly disenfranchised or marginalized women of color. And I thought that it was kind of a metaphor for how sometimes we are perceived. So that's why the title of the book is Medusa, Reflections of an Angry Black Girl, because we're all kind of battling that angry black woman myth, and Medusa being a myth. And the reason why I capitalized M-E is because it's a memoir, so it's reflective of my life. It's a personal account of me, and me just kind of going through these different challenges to become who I am now.
That is absolutely amazing. And I'm happy that you highlighted that angry black girl or angry black woman concept. I was watching some videos on YouTube, and the discussion was coming up, and it's like, I'm not an angry black woman, I'm just a black woman who's angry because of XYZ things that have happened to me. So okay, wow, I can't wait to get my hands on the book and read some of these pieces.
And that's exactly what I wanted to show. And the reason why it's Angry Black Girl is because my age is like 16 to about, well, maybe a little bit younger, maybe about 12 to about 20 years old. So it's not actually, I'm actually coming of age. So I wanted to show what makes a woman or a black girl feel angry. Okay. So I wanted to highlight the circumstances.
All right, so younger ladies can really enjoy this book and take a lot from it.
Yes, but I will caution that there are some dark areas, and it is it's very raw. Okay. So I've had younger women read it. I would probably say maybe 15 and up. No, nobody really younger than that. So I would say young adult, and I've had a lot of educators read it.
Wow. And unfortunately in this society, our young ladies are introduced to dark things, either by choice or by force. And so I think it's time to stop shielding them so much from every single thing. Still not exposing them, but at the same time, don't send them out into the world unprepared for what they're about to face.
Exactly.
All right. I want to say good morning to Shantae Johnson. Good morning to you. Thank you for checking in. Shantae, since you're in Little Rock, you need to look up Miss Coffy and y'all make connection, and hopefully you can find some other avenues for her to share her work in the arenas that you, in your circles that you run in. So hopefully we can make that connection. All right, so I want to get into the titles, the various titles in the book, because I don't want to run out of time. I want to give you ample time to really discuss, the titles and of the pieces, and, what inspired each piece. And, don't give away too much, because we want people to get their hands on your book, but I want to give them a little appetizer.
Okay. So I'll just pick out a few then.
Okay.
Well, the first one that I get a lot of feedback on is the prologue. So the prologue is actually a fast forward into like a really difficult time period. But what I get a lot of feedback about that particular part is that it's the subtitle is A Tragedy in 16 Bars. So it's almost written like a rap verse, but I've heard that it's very creative. Okay. It just shows, I guess, what the 90s were like in Oakland, California, which is really a universal story, because I know the 90s were like that here in Little Rock as well. So I get a lot of good feedback from that chapter. Well, the prologue.
Okay. Alrighty. So.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the next one I think I get a lot of feedback on, I'll say the first chapter, which is Me Against the World. I oftentimes read this one whenever I do readings. And of course, that's the title of a Tupac song.
Yes.
And this is actually one of the chapters that I won. I won actually 2 awards on this chapter. One was the Arkansas Arts Council Fellowship Award for 2017, and then the Dan Snow Emerging Writers Award. I won that in 2018. That was before the book was published. Okay. So the Me Against the World is actually showing me at a not so fine time in my life, and I was walking through the streets of Oakland, and by the end of the chapter you realize that I'm actually on my way to court. So I read this chapter recently at a Know Your Rights tour, which kind of showed how particularly young black people, but particularly young black women, are misrepresented in the justice system. So it shows me, I only got a small little taste of the justice system, but it shows how I was going there by myself. I had no representation. Oh, wow. And, just bad choices that I made. And it ends with me getting a second chance. Okay. So that's a good chapter to read. I started with that chapter it's a really good chapter because it describes Oakland very well. And then, like I said, by the end, you get an introduction to the protagonist of the story, which is me. And it's written in first person, so it's almost like you're going there and you're going to court and you're standing there. So it's first person present, I should say.
Okay.
So which means I'm telling the story as if we're living that action right now.
Okay, so would you say that the pieces that are in your book, they're not all necessarily poetry? And even though the word poetry or poems is subjective to the reader, would you say they're kind of on the borderline of monologue or just an essay, or is there I'm sorry, I'm not an English major.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not an English major, so you know the terminology more than me.
Well, yes, I know. I'll say that the first chapter is written more like poetry. Even though it doesn't rhyme, it's very poetic. It has a lot of rhythm in it. And I wrote it that way intentionally because I wanted it to be like I wanted to start off with a bang. I wanted to be really creative. After that, the next chapters are written more in a prose way, more like typical literature.
Okay.
The only thing that I would say that makes it different from the average book that I read is that it, like I said, it's written in first person present. So it's not written like past tense, even though it's a story that took place in the past. I talk about it as if it's something that's going on right now. So I've heard that my writing is really creative. I've gotten a lot of good reviews on the book that is creative, and I think they get a poetic feel from it because I am a poet and because of the way that I probably describe things.
So would you say that each reader would take away something different based on their personal experience, like whatever they're dealing with in their personal life, but
yes,
each piece is still relatable nonetheless? Would you say they would take away something different? Everybody would take away maybe what they need in that moment.
Yeah, and that's pretty typical. But one of the good things is that a lot of people that have read my book so far, because of social media, they can reach out to me. So I've gotten a lot of real-time feedback from it. So I've had people come to me and say that what they got out of it was mother-daughter relationships. And so I'm like, okay, wow, that was the thing that stood out the most to them. Then I've had guys read it who have said what they got out of it is just a little bit of understanding about what women go through, what females go through, because we oftentimes hear about the assault on black men and boys, and a lot of times the oppression of girls of color is invisible. So I've gotten them, their feedback is that, wow, they didn't realize how much, we actually go through.
That's awesome. Now, do you feel that, and maybe you already worked on this, I may be speaking out of turn, but do you feel that your book can spark a multitude of ongoing discussions that have never been had, or that are just never had enough, either between men and women, groups of women, or groups of men? And like you said, the men that replied to you, state that they were unaware or just kind of oblivious to what women go through. So do you feel that this can spark more conversation or new conversation in order to, I guess, heal, repair, in some way, reshape our society and our views of each other?
Yes, I do. I think that because of the feedback that I've gotten back, I knew that it was going to spark, because there's instances of sexual abuse in there. I knew that it would spark that.
Okay.
I didn't know that it would also spark men to talk about theirs, but also generational trauma is one thing that people have come to me about, and I'm actually going to speak on generational trauma this weekend, or intergenerational trauma. So just the trauma that we think about it from the trauma that we experience, but not necessarily like in a historical context, like our grandparents and then our mothers and then us. And I've had a lot of teachers come to me. I have a few teacher friends who've read it, and they've come to me. And some of them are not friends. Some of them are just people who have read, who are teachers, and they'll reach out to me and say that it gives them perspective on how to deal with certain students, because they deal with students and they kind of look at everyone in the same context. And so when they read this, they're like, oh, wow, it makes me want to stop and pause and kind of have a little understanding of what else may be going on in their life, why they may not have their homework, or why this particular student has an attitude. So I think it does. I think that's one of the good things about writing, is that you can share your story, and it gives people insight and perspective that they may not have.
Okay.
There are a lot of commonalities, but there are things that you may experience that other people may have never experienced and they don't know.
Okay. I want to touch on, you mentioned about the generational trauma, things of that nature, and also going back to the conversation part, do you feel that this can spark conversation between generations? Oftentimes we may hear those that are, say, 60 and above say, well, you don't know anything about trouble, trauma, you don't know anything about struggle, XYZ, whatever, to the, younger generation, say 30 and under. Do you feel that your book and your pieces will help spark conversation and say, okay, I may not have experienced what you did, in your time period, but here's what's happening in my time period. And it is traumatic for me. So
right.
It opened that door for understanding and compassion.
Well, I definitely do. I am Generation X, so I do sit in the middle of the millennial generation and also the baby booming generation. So I think that the most important thing is that we all affect each other. So there's no such thing as, the experiences that my grandmother or my great-grandmother raised my mother. Okay. So I never met my grandmother. So we have that generation that affected my mother's generation that also affects and dictates how she may address me and things that she may have taught me, or things that she may have told me not to do. It affected, even we could look at colorism and show that it may have been things that my grandmother may experience, or great-grandmother with colorism that she may have passed on to my mother, that she may have passed on to me, things like that. So we're all tied into it together, even though we all have our unique things of our generation. There are things, I think, that as a Generation X, I think that millennials may not experience. And when they read my book, they may be like, wow, but they have their own struggles that we're all trying to understand and experience as well. So just understanding how those things have affected us, and I think it will open up conversation. I know for me and my family and my mother it has, because although we live these stories that's in this book, she never knew it from my perspective because the communication just wasn't there. But reading the book, she's like, oh, okay. Now, she may not agree with, the perspective of it, but as far as the truth of it, yeah, she agrees. We all have that one, that the truth of the story lies there, but our perspectives of it may be slightly different. But it's important for us to hear each other, and I think that that a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with older generations, a lot of times I think that things were kind of quieted and pushed under the rug and not talked about.
Most definitely, yes, ma'am. And I hope that we begin a healing process within our community, because we cannot continue on the cycle that we're on if we are to stand up against all of the other things that society is throwing at us, especially as people of color, black, brown, whatever ethnic group you fall in. We cannot continue with all this negativity and trauma and whatever else is toxic to our well-being. We cannot continue with all that. We have to let it go, release it somehow, so that we can move forward. I want to say good morning to Dr. Sharice Jones-Branch, and I'm guessing Sean SD, she says good morning. She thought you were in town. She's not in town. She's just on the phone, but one day we'll get you into town.
Morning.
Miss Sean, Shantez, SD. Well, we call her SD. She says good morning. She thought you were in town.
No, I'm not, but I do have a Facebook page called, I have my own Facebook page, which is Coffy Davis, but I also have a Medusa, a memoir page that's on Facebook if you want to look me up on there.
Okay. We definitely want people to check you out, and definitely, we can't unfortunately tell you the price of the book, but if you would like to purchase the book, please reach out to Ms. Coffy to find out is it on Amazon?
Yes, it is on Amazon.
Okay, so you can go to Amazon, find the book, and support a local art. And I say local by Arkansas. Well, even though are you not originally from Arkansas?
No, Oakland, California. Okay. But I do consider myself an Arkansas, and I've been here 20 years, so
you're an
I do consider myself a local artist.
So yeah, you're one of us now. All right. So as we get down to our last, few moments, I know we didn't go through all of the titles in the book. However, are there any others you would like to highlight really quickly, or just a final message you would like to send to our listeners and viewers out there?
Okay, I'll say one of my favorite ones is called The Cost of Living, and that was actually an assignment that a teacher gave me in school, and I thought that was a really good chapter, but it's also during one of the hardest periods of my life, and so I think that's a really good chapter. And then toward the end of the book, the section that I call The Bridge, which is, those chapters would be chapter 316, and then a chapter called Casa. And you're familiar with 316 in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
And then Casa is, actually, casa means home in Spanish, but it's also, casa also is a place that I stayed. So the book talks about me I was 19 years old, I was pregnant, and I was homeless. And one of the things that saved my life was that I was taken into a shelter that was run by nuns, and the place was called Casa Vincinia. So that chapter is really good. It's kind of where the novel starts taking a turn for the better, where you see that I'm finding the hope that I had lost.
That's absolutely amazing. Okay, so now I really got to get my hands on this book. All right, and I'm sure it's going to be one of those page turners, read in one sitting type of book.
I've had some people say that they read it in one sitting. It's 158 pages.
Okay.
But I also want to point out that there are book titles. I mean, there are chapter titles. One called like Gold Digger, Hood Rat. And the reason why I use those titles as chapters is because I wanted to show like different names that women were called. I don't know if you're familiar with the book Sister Citizen, but that book talks about stereotypes of black women, and I wanted to kind of show, especially for my generation, certain stereotypes of young black women.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I can't thank you enough for being on the phone with me, being my guest for today, and I hope everyone gets their hands on your book, and I can't wait to hear more of the discussions that come out of people reading your book. So I hope that you have huge success with everything, with the sales and with the discussions and the interactions that follow.
Well, I definitely thank you so much for having me. It's such a blessing to be on your show, to be able to talk about my book.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you everyone out there for listening. Today is an abbreviated day, so enjoy the mixes after the announcements. Have a great and blessed day, everybody.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
How can you make this Valentine's Day a memorable